Shalom. First, I want to start off by giving honor, praises, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechak Wadash. Double honors into the elders, apostles, and bishops, the GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach, and edify. And peace and blessings to sincere Akim Ma'akwat in his household of faith. My name is Yeshaya from the GMS Arizona Church in Ottawa, Matazah. Gonna make a quick and edifying lesson. Prophecy, man. These devils are rolling in with that digital ID, right? And, they're implementing certain things in the society on that authentication. People are having to verify themselves to use certain things. They're putting sanctions on internet access, and you're no longer able to do, things as anonymously as you were on the internet, and that's all ushering towards the time to where they're going to have that total control, on that technocracy, okay? And as a matter of fact, it'd be pretty good to look up that word technocracy. Salakia. Now, this is the word technocracy, just a simple definition in the chat. It says a system of government where decision-making power is given to experts, specifically scientists, engineers, economists, and other technically skilled people rather than elected politicians. So basically leaning on artificial intelligence and technology, to, administer judgment, to do things that whereas a man, as mankind would have done, And it says core idea is that leaders are selected based on knowledge and expertise. Politics are guided by data, sciences, and efficiency. The chat is ultimately going to try to sugarcoat this thing, right? But we understand what these times are moving towards, man. We're moving towards times where, this devil is going to come down and he's going to try to have the whole world, under that rulership with his miracles, man. His miracles is his technology, and the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip, 100%, and it is a sin to take it, and if you take that, you are not a part of the elect, okay? And these are the early accessories and implementations of that system, man, that beast system. And this is the start of it all, man. Ultimately, it's been rolling for decades now. These devils, we're talking about Project 2030, but the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua can even hasten that to happen quicker. But without further ado, let us get into this article and get some precepts going. It says, I just screenshotted these, so it might not be the best quality. But it says, EU advances age verification, apps and privacy and security concerns. European Commission unveiled new technology this week designed to power smartphone apps that verify users' age online as a part of an effort to make the internet safer. And this is the type of psyop that this devil does, man. And this is why we must get 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11, or 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. And that reads, in the NLT, it says, so that Satan will not outsmart us. We are familiar with his evil schemes. Going to that word schemes, man, it's his plots, his plans. These devils have a cloak of maliciousness, as a matter of fact. And we got to get that too. No. So like a dog. Man, Salakia. This is First Peter chapter 2 and verse 16. And it says, we'll start at 15. It says, for so is the will of the Lord, that we, well doing, ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as the servants of the Lord. And that's, just like how we are not to use that cloak of maliciousness, which is that hidden want to do, malice towards another person. This devil on the left-hand side, only plots and schemes to do so. It says, the next scripture says, honor all men. This devil's prerogative is to rule over all men and consider himself as the Most High. It says, love the brotherhood. This devil kills. Fear Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. This devil doesn't fear the Lord. This devil boasts himself against the Lord, and it says, honor the king. And this devil truly believes that there is no other king than him. And the devil that I'm speaking of is the so-called white man. Okay, Esau, Edom, beginning with the wicked elite, which is the rich banking families of Esau, Edom, man. You got even in parts of these small hats, man. And these devils, right, these deceivers, which is that word devil goes into, are using this cloak of maliciousness on the left-hand side, and they're hiding it. That's why that word cloak is so important, which is the word epikaloma, and it says a root word to conceal, all right, to cover, and this devil does everything he possibly can to cover his maliciousness, all right, but, a snake cannot hide its fangs, and when it's time for that fang, that snake to strike, those that are prudent, foreseen what it was from the beginning. And, going back to 2 Corinthians 2:11, so Satan will not outsmart us. We are familiar with his evil schemes, and this is his implementation of that into society, man. Furthering his enterprise, and because we know, as the scriptures say in Job, at the height of his sufficiency, you shall be brought in straits. This devil thinks he's just the slyest person to ever, come upon this planet. This devil thinks he's the smartest. The scriptures talk about, oh thou wiser than Daniel. This devil has been getting knowledge on the left-hand side that gives him the ability to do these things, man. And the scriptures also say, thy wisdom has, thy pride has deceived you. This devil, really thinks he can't be stopped. But this is from Insider Gaming. It says a PlayStation to require age verification for certain online features. And it might start something small like this to get the people used to it. Think about contactless payment. I remember when I got a job years ago, when I was about 15. No, it was like 16. And I used to work at the sub shop, J. Mike's, making subs, and people used to always pay with cash. And I used to people used to pay in cash, and I used to be kind of irritated because we had the tap pay too. I'm like, man, I got to take my gloves off and count this cash for you and give them the change. And now, in the current age, man, there's food places that don't even accept cash anymore. Those same food places that were once, were dealing with having a cash, cash register like that are now cashless. And that's what we're moving towards, man, a cashless society, a digitally controlled society, man. Universal basic income. All these things are coming upon this earth, man. And we can see that this devil is rolling these things in play by play, man. But what did I want to get? This is I'm gonna end off with this scripture here. This is Jeremiah. Bear with me for 1 second. This is Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 6. It says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evening shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. Every one that goeth out thence shall be torn into pieces. And this is ultimately going into Esau, Edom, man, how they're going to be doing you jakes, man. Qualifying that in. That they're going to be doing you jakes because like a leopard falling over the city, man. Looking at, corporations like Palantir. That mass identification, that facial recognition to where you're not going to be able to escape. Rolling out 6G means that they're going to be able to have, digital connection even in the most rural of places, man. Like you could be playing Xbox, in the middle of a mountain, somewhere in Saudi Arabia, places where they thought that they would never be able to commune to, man, because of the limitations of 5 gigabyte Wi-Fi. The difference is literally 1,000 times faster. 5G is on average being able to conduct 10 gigabytes, per second to download. The 6G that they're planning on rolling out, it is upward. It's a 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte is 1,000 of those 10 gigabytes, man. So everything's moving closer and closer to the end of this system, man. And we can see that. But it says, a leopard shall watch over the city, and everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn into pieces, because their transgressions are many. And that's why we have to understand when this devil comes in with the RFID microchip, it says, and any of those who do not, take this is going to be killed, man. They're going to kill those who refuse to take it. And those who refuse to take the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, are ultimately the elect, man. Right? The elect are not going to take the RFID microchip at all. They're not gonna do no pansy scheme by taking it and then, trying to cut their hand off or something stupid like that. The elect are not gonna take it, period, because they're fully submitted in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. That's why the scriptures say in Romans the 11th chapter, I reserve myself 7,000 men that shall bow not the knee to Baal. Okay, those 7,000 men, that's number 7 spiritually representative of completion. The 144,000. Sit down. Sit. But it says, because their transgressions are many and their backsliding is increased, how shall I pardon thee for this? Thy children forsake me, and sworn by them that are no gods. When I have fed them to the full, they are committed adultery and assemble themselves by troops into the harlots' houses. And you jakes out there, you 2/3, submitting yourselves to all these, false gods, man. Those that are no gods. And the Lord's going to mock you. And the scriptures even talk about, I believe in Ezekiel, how the Lord is going to have, kill you and throw you out in front of your gods, man. You jakes out there, with the Nation of Islam, you jakes out there thinking that you finna find some, clemency and Roman wacky-tacky Christianity, The Lord's going to have you slain, in the midst of all those. And he's going to slay those false idols, man. Because he's true. And as a matter of fact, before we end off, man, this is second, I don't want to get too off topic, but, man, this point, has to be said. It says, the lofty looks of man shall be humbled. The haughtiness of man shall be bowed down. And the Lord alone, Yahweh, Hashem Yahushai, alone will be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, upon everyone that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. All these, all these false gods, all these deities are all lifted up, man, by man, by proud men and by foolish idiots, man. And the Lord is going to just destroy all of this, and it's going to be a beloved day. Lord willing, we be a part of the elect. We be on the right side of that thing, man. But I've played this was edifying. I want to last give all honor, praise, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Akak B'dah, Shalom.